This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. We got some new reporting in the E Jean Carroll case, which is at closing arguments on the way to jury deliberations. Donald Trump thought it was a good idea to get up and walk out, literally, of the trial during E Jean Carroll's lawyer's closing argument, continuing his misogynist attacks on E Jean Carroll, even in body language. And what do you think that looked like to a jury? That the defendant, in a case where he's already been adjudged to have been a rapist and someone who defamed her, to which they are going to now decide the amount of punitive damages in an amount to get him to stop his campaign of harassment and vitriol and defamation against her, which continues even through this moment, even through this time of my hot take. He's continuing to degrade and humiliate and defame E Jean Carroll. Getting up at the beginning of the closing arguments or at any time during the trial is a cardinal sin to a jury. A jury is watching every move that a defendant makes, every eye twitch, every adjustment of a tie, every gulp of water. As a trial lawyer, I will tell you that juries are fixed on trying to pick up body language and to try to interpret that as part of their fact-finding. And for Donald Trump to insult a female attorney who's giving the argument about a female rape victim of Donald Trump that the jury's already been instructed about, it's just eye-poppingly not only mean-spirited and stupid and misogynist, but it's just, he might as well just, have the jury double the amount of the jury verdict. Whatever amount the jury has in their mind by the end of today, when they are dismissed or when they're instructed and sent over to the jury room to deliberate, whatever amount that 9 members of that anonymous jury have, I think they'll double it or triple it based on Donald Trump's behavior today. I mean, I can't stress enough. I've been doing trial work for 32 years. I've tried over 30 cases, including many in front of juries in federal court. I can't imagine a world in which my party, my client, would get up and leave the courtroom at any critical point in the trial, let alone in an insulting way in a closing argument. The optics of it, I can't even describe what a jury, and I'm a big believer in our jury system and our jury process here. They are not only fact finders, they are truth finders. They are authenticity finders. And they are not, I am going to tell you straight, they are not going to be happy at all. They're going to be the opposite of happy that Donald Trump did that. Now, this was not done without the lawyers for Donald Trump's tacit approval or approval. No way. Alina Habba and Mike Medio should be disbarred for allowing a mockery to happen, a travesty to happen in a federal court. One that Judge Kaplan is trying desperately and doing well to keep the wheels on this cart of justice against all odds, dealing with Donald Trump and Alina Habba. We'll talk about Alina Habba almost being sent down to the federal detention center within the courthouse today because of her arguments with the judge got out of hand again, and the judge let her know who's the judge. That was before the closing statements, the closing arguments, over a fight over what they were planning to use as demonstrative evidence, illustrative evidence on the Trump side during the closing. But the actual closing itself, when E Jean Carroll's lawyer, Robbie Kaplan, who's been on our show, Legal AF, before, when she said at that moment, did Donald Trump respect the jury verdict from the earlier trial in May, when 9 other jurors decided, after hearing the evidence, that he had raped my client and that he had defamed my client, did he respect that order, that judgment, that verdict of the jury, that finding of the jury? No, he did not even for 24 hours. Because we know the next day he went to CNN at a town hall and completely defamed and disparaged her, said that she was crazy, a kook, a hoax, look at her, not my type, shakedown artist, never met her, and the like. That was the next day after the jury verdict. And when she said that, Robbie Kaplan said that and pointed over to Donald Trump got up, his long red tie, and walked out of the courtroom as courtroom reporters observed. And then Boris Epshteyn, who I've done multiple hot takes about, who should be indicted already. He's the unindicted co-conspirator in Jack Smith's D.C. election interference case. He's the wannabe consigliere for Donald Trump. He's the one that put all the lawyers in place, all the lawyers that got hired, any of the crazy meritless lawsuits that Donald Trump has filed and gotten sanctioned for, $1 million in Florida, $500,000 in New York related to a case against the New York Times, $1 million in Florida related to a case against Hillary Clinton. Those are all out of the fevered imagination of Boris Epshteyn. Boris Epshteyn, earlier in the trial, got sanctioned or got reprimanded by the judge when he tried to speak in the courtroom without being a member of the bar of the Southern District of New York Federal Court. The judge says, "Are you a member of the bar here? Because you're speaking in my courtroom." And he said, "No, I'm a member of the state bar." He says, "Take a seat. You're not a member of the bar." And now, when his fearless cult leader, Donald Trump, walked out, Boris Epshteyn decided he was going to button up his three-piece suit and he was going to walk out right behind him, to which the judge stopped him. And first of all, when Donald Trump walked out, the judge turned to the jury and turned to the court reporter and said, "Let the record reflect that Donald Trump, not President Trump, Donald Trump just rose and walked out of the courtroom." Judge has been very clear. He's not going to use that honorific of President Trump or former President Trump because Donald Trump doesn't deserve it. He's going to be Donald John Trump in that courtroom like any other garden variety defendant. That's what the judge has said. When Alina Habba said to the jury, "President Trump something else," he said, "Donald John Trump, no President Trump here." And so he had the record reflect. I mean, when the person in a black robe intones something that has happened, the jury listens, trust me. The jury follows and gets the message. Donald Trump, that's unusual, right? That Donald Trump has just left the courtroom. And then when Boris Epshteyn tried to leave the courtroom at the same time, following behind his fearless leader, the judge said, "Defense counsel ought to remain seated. And that includes you, Mr. Epshteyn, even though you aren't part of the defense counsel." In other words, you're a lawyer. You have a bar license to worry about. I'm a federal judge. Sit down and stop interrupting this trial with this performative artwork, which all it's doing is continuing to malign, disrespect in a misogynistic way E. Jean Carroll, the victim of that rape, in a federal courtroom. So that's where we're at right now. Earlier, when they were having a discussion without the jury, Alina Habba tried to get some new evidence in that she hadn't used during the trial, which I'm sorry is a major no-no. I mean, I think even our followers and listeners of Legal AF know better than that. If it's not in evidence, you're not going to be able to use it as a demonstrative. Now, you can use demonstratives or illustrative evidence as long as they're based on some evidence in the case, a timeline, some sort of slideshow, a day in the life video, if it's based on facts. I mean, this is the argument section, and the judge instructs the jury that now you're going to hear from lawyers, and this is argument, not evidence, but it has to be based on evidence. Alina Habba tried to bring in text messages and other things that were not brought into evidence. And so before the jury got seated, the judge says, "What do you want to bring in?" She says, "We want to bring in these tweets that were never entered into evidence from Donald Trump." The judge says, "You're not doing that. That's not in evidence, and you're not going to be able to argue that in your closing." And when Alina Habba, who got a taste for fighting with judges, and I think it got positively reinforced because she kept fighting with Judge Engoron with no jury present in the bench trial of the New York Attorney General civil fraud case, but she got a taste for it. She thought she'd try it out, that conduct on a federal judge. And the federal judge not only told her to sit down, he said that you are on the verge of spending some time in the lockup, meaning there is a federal detention center inside the courthouse in the Southern District of New York and every other federal courthouse that's usually used for prisoners and people that do something bad in the courtroom. They got to go somewhere. There is a federal detention center in Manhattan, but there's a holding cell within the courthouse. And the judge just threatened her appropriately or reprimanded her, Alina Habba, and said, "If you don't sit down, you're going to be spending some time in a lockup, meaning I'm going to fine you in contempt, and I'm going to call the federal marshals who respond only to me and my directions to take you out of this courthouse. I've said it prior hot takes, and on Legal AF, our show, our podcast on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I said that Alina Habba better bring her toothbrush with her, because I could tell how she was acting out in the pretrial hearings and in jury selection and in other places. And at the rate she was going, I would not be surprised if the judge put her in the federal detention center. And that almost happened today. It was almost like one more word and you're going to be, taken away by the federal marshals, and we'll explain your absence to the jury. And so she thought better of that and sat down, and the closing arguments continued. We'll continue to report as we get new information. Again, there's no live audio. There's no live video. We're getting information from people that are in the courtroom, and then we're analyzing it and bringing it to you here. One place, the MeidasTouch Network, Legal AF. We do it every Wednesday and Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Till my next hot take later today. Till my next Legal AF. This is Michael Popok reporting.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.